Cream of the crop! Devil Dog Gaming! Step into it! Hello everybody, it's me, Nate, aka Devil Dog, and I'm about to go see Rambo Last Blood. So, is Rambo Last Blood a good addition to the Rambo series? Or is it a movie that should just been stuck like a pig? Well, stay tuned to my review of Rambo Last Blood to find out. Warning, the following movie review is rated R for retarded. In a world full of crime, corruption, and destruction, one man decides to review movies. This is Devil Dog at the Movies. Whew. Alright everybody, I'm back from going and seeing Rambo Last Blood. First of all, this is a big shout out to Eric Thomas. He's the one who wanted me to go and do a movie review on this movie. I really wasn't planning on it because it didn't really look that good. But Eric Thomas, because of you, I went and seen this movie. Now, first of all, the first part of this will be a basic synopsis of what I thought of the movie, and it will be spoiler free. At a certain point, I will tell you when it's no longer spoiler free, and I will give you direct details of the entire movie. Naturally, this is supposed to be the last Rambo movie by Sylvester Stallone, and it kind of ties it all together, sort of, I would guess. And I would have to say, overall, this was actually a really good movie. I found the last one to be a lot more over-the-top, violent, and gory, with a lot more kills. But this one, don't get me wrong, it definitely has a lot of massive gore to it, a lot of really disturbingly brutal kills, a lot of good hand-to-hand kills with knives and weapons and stuff like that. It was really, really cool. There's a couple things I do have to point out with this movie, though. It's a very somber, depressing movie, okay? I mean, honestly, it takes about 3/4 of the movie before it gets to the Rambo action. And at first, you know, you think John Rambo is kind of like changed, but, you know, he's just kind of living his life. But it seems to take place in two main locations for the whole movie. One is on his farm, his ranch, that's right outside across the border in America. And the other part of the movie takes place in Mexico. And that's basically the whole gist of this movie, is going back and forth between his place and Mexico for the main story. And without getting into details, basically, Rambo is pretty much living with a Mexican woman and her daughter, and it's kind of taken up the moniker of being like the father figure for him. And when one girl ends up going to Mexico to try to find her father, to find out why he left her and her mom a long time ago, some bad stuff happens. Rambo pretty much kicks it into overdrive, and a lot of stuff goes down. I mean, it starts off with a lot of juxtaposition of just explaining the character, and when he goes and does his stuff. And honestly, it is a good movie, but it is really depressing. And like I said, it really is hard to explain this without getting into the spoilers. But it's a very depressing movie until it gets past that 3/4 of the way mark. Then it picks up and gets into Rambo-licious time. And when it gets to that part, it's really, really good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a slow burn movie. It's got some good stuff to it throughout, but it's setting up this story arc. And it's not until the last quarter of it where all the stuff goes down. So honestly, I would have to say I like this movie. It is really good. It definitely earns its rating in terms of the amount of gore and violence in it. The death count is up there pretty good. Honestly, I liked it, but I did kind of like the last one better when he was in the jungle where he's mowing people down. But this movie seemed to focus on practical gore effects, which I am a huge believer in practical effects. You know, if you can do it with practical effects, do it. You can add a little bit of CGI in there to help it. But for the most part, this seemed to have mostly all practical effects with it, and it made it way better, way, way better. The blood looked like it was real blood, too. I mean, well, not real human blood, you know what I mean, like actual spraying blood instead of CGI blood like most movies have nowadays. I don't know, I might be wrong, but it looked like it was real blood, unlike the last Rambo where it was like CGI blood out the wazoo. The only other problem I would have to say I have with this movie is they seem to film it with shaky cam. Now, not a lot of it, but there are a lot of scenes in this movie where it's almost like shaky cam and it's hard to see what's going on. If they would have just focused and maybe had a steady cam instead of these handheld shaky cams, it probably would have made the movie a lot better. And also if they actually stayed on the gore a little bit longer, even though you do get to see a lot. You know, but in the end, I would actually have to say that this was a really good Rambo movie. Naturally, my favorite ones have to be Rambo 1 and the last one, you know, the one before this one. What's a Rambo 17, 18, 19? I forget how many there are now, like 5, 6 of them, I think. I think 5 or 6 now. But honestly, I like the character, but man, Sylvester Stallone's getting old. Now, at this point is where it's going to be spoilers. I'm going to go into great graphic detail of exactly what happens in this movie and the reason why I couldn't explain much before. At this point, if you do plan to go see Rambo, this won't necessarily ruin the experience for you, but you'll kind of know what you're going to be getting into by it. Now, it basically starts off with Rambo, who is living his life now, training horses on this ranch that is right outside of Mexico, I guess Texas or something. They don't really explain exactly where. And he's living with, like I said, this Mexican woman and her daughter. And he's taken up the moniker of being the new father figure because he even says that in the past that, you know, the daughter's mother had died. And her father had pretty much left them both and went back to Mexico. And the daughter basically was naive, and she wanted to know from the words out of his mouth from her father of why he left her and her mother. And, you know, Rambo's like, listen, you're young, you don't understand, but there's evil people out there. This guy's heart is black, he's not good, don't waste your time. Well, she don't listen, and she goes to Mexico and meets up with an old friend of hers, which is this hood rat gangbanger, you know, a scumbag, you know, not a good person. She does actually hook her up with where her father is, and she's able to go and talk to her father firsthand and ask him, you know, hey, why? It's like, because I didn't love you. I left you and your mother, you know, because your mother died of cancer. I had no love for you, so I left you. You know, so get the hell out of here. There's nothing else for you to be here for. Well, when she's leaving, her friend decides, hey, you know, because she needs money, let's go out and party, you know, because you're in an upset mood. I'll drive. Takes her to this party and basically gets her drunk, and they drug her up. And she kind of sort of sells her to these, you know, these sex traffickers, basically, in Mexico. So these, you know, Mexican cartel sex traffickers pretty much enslave her and make her a sex slave. And, you know, so then you go back to Rambo. And, you know, after a while, he figures out, crap, okay, something happened. She went to Mexico. So the Mexican woman's like, bring my daughter back, you know, bring her back. And he's like, I will. He goes to Mexico, tracks down, you know, the father, you know, finds out, like, hey, have you seen her? It's like, no, I told her, you know, I didn't love her. Get the heck out of here. You know, so he meets up with the girl that sold her and finds out, hey, what happened to her? You know, if you don't tell me, I'm going to kill you. And he's like, well, if I tell you, they're going to kill me. You know, I have to live. It's like, take me to where the guy is. So she takes him to the bar, this big old nightclub, points out the guy, you know, so he's following him out, you know, this location, so he can go and, you know, confront him. Well, there's so many of them, you know, they pretty much beat the living hell out of Rambo. slice his face wide open, but they don't kill him. They're like, listen, we're going to let you live. But, we know this is the woman you were coming to, for, this your daughter. So we're going to make her life a living hell. We're going to shoot her full of drugs. We're going to slash her face open. And we're going to rape her constantly. So like I said, it's a very depressing movie, So fortunately, this one person finds Rambo after they leave him there to die, and nurses him back to health, gets his face stitched up. And about 5-6 days later, when he's like, listen, I'm going to make him pay. I'm going to get her back. So he goes to the location of where she's at, brutally murders these people with a knife. I mean, like stabbing them in the face, in the testicles, just like ripping, holes in her chest, and really violent and gory. And he rescues her. But they had beaten the hell out of her and drugged her so much that when he's driving home, she pretty much ODs and dies on the way home. So when he gets her back to his ranch, the one lady's upset, they bury her, and then he's basically like, listen, there's nothing left for you here. You need to pretty much just leave, just pack up your stuff and leave. And then it goes into this montage because he knows that basically, he wants to make all these sex traffickers feel the way he feels, that his heart was ripped out of him for killing his daughter. So, there's this big montage of him setting up all these traps and weapons, spikes, explosions, gasoline, guns everywhere, all kinds of neat booby traps. It's like Home Alone on steroids, okay? I mean, some massive, really neat ass booby traps he sets up everywhere in this ranch because he has all these underground tunnels he's built too. Well, then he goes back to Mexico again, and goes to basically, because it was these two brothers that did all this, he goes and tracks down the one guy, the one brother, brutally murders all his henchmen, and then brutally murders him to where when his other brother comes over there, it's basically just his torso, with a knife stuck in his chest with the picture of his daughter. That way the guy's like, okay, Rambo did it. So, Rambo goes back to his ranch for another montage of training with bows and arrows and everything else, getting shotgun shells ready and stuff like that. So the Mexican guys, there's like 5-6 carloads of them. They go, now it's kind of weird. It's like, okay, just leave Mexico and get to Texas. I don't know how that works. You think there might be a little problem getting across the border with all these weapons, all these guns and stuff, but apparently not. A little bit of a loophole there. But all these Mexican traffickers get to his house, and that's where the finale ensues, where Rambo is just picking them off. He's got mines in the front yard that blows up one of the cars, and then all these like gasoline in these big channels that like makes it to force them through certain areas. They're stepping on booby traps that are literally blowing them apart. He's like throwing stuff into their face that's just ripping their faces apart. Every time he would hurt somebody, like they'd get stuck, like a booby trap would like stick them in the chest, he'd run over there and he'd start like stabbing them 15 times or shooting them in the head several times, just brutally murdering these guys one by one. And there's a bunch of them. I mean, he's blowing them up with like shoving like poles through their heads, and it's really graphic and gory and violent. And he saves the one last brother for last, and he's in the barn, and he pretty much shoots both his shoulders and both his legs against the wall of his barn, goes up to him, sticks a knife in his chest, rips his chest clean open, rips his cavity open, and pulls his still beating heart out, and the guy dies. And then he goes and sits on his front porch on the rocking chair and has a monologue. That's pretty much how it ends. In the end, I would have to say, hello, Rambo Last Blood was a really good movie. I liked it. I liked the plot. I just kind of wish, it was really, really dark, really messed up, really showing a dark side of like sex trafficking in Mexico. And the gory kills were fantastic. I just really, really wish that they wouldn't have used so much damn shaky cam. And they kind of jumped back and forth between where he lived, which they didn't explain, in Mexico a lot. And, other than one part where showing the girl cross the border, they don't really explain how these bad guys in Rambo got back and forth across the border. I mean, they did with the part with his daughter. He, like, drove right through a fence, illegally, I might add. But the the sex traffickers. I don't know how they got to Texas or wherever he lived. But in the end, I can actually recommend Rambo if you were a fan of all the other Rambo movies. Just keep in mind, it's got a very sick and twisted, dark storyline, a lot of depression to it. But in the end, Rambo pretty much shines at the end, shows off his neat ability of just totally becoming a badass and mutilating these Mexican sex traffickers, giving them what they had. And I can actually say that this was a really good movie. This was Nate, aka Double Dog, and I want to thank each and every one of you for watching this video. Hit the thumbs up if you like this video. Hit the bell icon to stay updated whenever I release any new videos. And remember, I always end my videos by saying, have fun, play hard, and remember, people, the devil is in the details. Peace out.